Okay, a while back I reviewed Catwoman, the atrocious Halle Berry movie, and so much I should review Cat People. So I watched the 1942 version, which is a really good horror classic, and the 1943 sequel, which had almost nothing to do with the original. I did that in preparation to review the 1982 remake. I'm going to read what Netflix has written up for this movie. After years of separation, Irina and her minister brother Paul reunite in New Orleans in this erotic tale of the supernatural from director Paul Schrader. When zoologists capture a wild panther, Irina is drawn to the cat, and the zoo curator is drawn to her. Soon, Irina's brother will have to reveal the family secret, that when sexually aroused they turn into predatory jungle cats. Now, in the original, Irina actually knew, that if she would get into somebody, she would become a cat and potentially kill them. She knew that. That's why she was always kind of bizarre and aloof. In the 1980s version, which ironically is like 3 times longer than the original, two times longer, 2 to 3 times roughly. When Irina shows up, she's been in like orphanages and has absolutely no idea about the turning into cat thing. But her brother, played by Malcolm McDowell, it's weird seeing him with like a full head of hair and it's black. So that's her minister brother, who, even though he knows about the whole, if he gets in a situation where, he is aroused in that sense, he will become a panther. Even though occasionally they keep on calling them leopards, but they're jet black panthers. And to turn back to a human, they have to kill somebody. So how did you take a girl from a foreign country who believes an old superstition that she can become a cat if she falls in love with somebody and kisses them, into, during a moment of sexual arousal, you will become a predatory jungle cat, primarily a panther? This movie is very, very bizarre, but it is undeniably 80s. Like I said, you have Malcolm McDowell, Annette O'Toole, John Hurd, John Larroquette. This is back before John Larroquette. He's not really mentioned in the opening credits. I think this was done by Jerry Bruckheimer, and the music's done by David Bowie. This is essentially the 80s wrapped up in a bow. It's a bizarre movie where even though it's mentioned as like, essentially as an erotic thriller, there are moments of nudity, but normally it's the bizarre sort of, oh, that seems undeniably random, and it takes bits and pieces from the original. In fact, I was able to find only a handful of scenes. There's a scene in the bar in the original where a woman walks up to her and says something in her native language. In this version, a woman walks up to her and she goes, "Mi hermana," and then walks off. It's an entirely random scene to have in this movie. It made sense in the original, because in the original, the woman knew what she was talking about and thought they were probably related. In this one, the woman playing Irina has absolutely no idea what's going on. So she's pretty much aloof the whole time. And when Paul reveals that they become cats, it's really bizarre because he has this weird, almost like incestuous relationship with her, and this is bizarre. This movie takes a lot of time to really draw out scenes. This movie, at being a shade under 2 hours, could probably been a really slimmed down like hour and 40 minutes, maybe hour and a half. It builds suspense fairly well. What made it work for me is, having been born in '79, I lived through the '80s. So when you hear all the weird synthesizer music and everything just screams '80s, from the way people look, the way people dress, to seeing lots of actors when they're a lot younger. So, if you've seen the original, you'll pick out the handful of scenes that actually, made it into the remake. The remake overall if you're a fan of like bizarre '80s movies, this this is actually pretty good for it. You know, the Daily voice synthesizer stuff works great. You know, they have the weird like people driving in a car. Meow, 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 meow. There's no dialogue while they're driving normally. As they're driving faster, the music picks up. When they're slowing down to stop, the music slows down with them. As well as moments where there's absolutely no sound beyond the ambient sound. It works pretty good on that. So John Hurt's character does actually, you know, fall for Arena in another scene that's relatively a takeoff from the original, where Arena's, you know, sketching the Panther, who ends up being her brother, because her brother got captured after he essentially killed the lady of the evening. He was then, you know, captured, which was kind of bizarre, because as him being a minister, if he's gone for a long period of time because he's in prison, seems kind of huh? So it takes almost forever for her to realize that this is what's going to happen. After her brother is killed, spoiler alert, in probably one of the most unique scenes, because he's killed in cat form, and when they're performing, you know, like an autopsy on him, when they cut into the cat, it's all regular cat. Begin scanning a little bit to find out, you know, the musculature and whatnot. And then like a human arm comes out, green smoke fills and returns into like a viscous pile of like cat goo. I said this is a very bizarre movie. John Hurt's character and Arena finally do end up, you know, consummating their relationship, which is what leads to her finally becoming a cat. You actually can type in like cat people, I think like 1982, and you actually can watch the transformation. For the time, it's actually done fairly well. We're not talking American Werewolf in London here, but it's done fairly well. She doesn't attack John Hurt's character, instead she kind of runs off. Now I skipped over some spots. You know, they do take a few more pieces from the original, like the streetcar scene, and when Annette O'Toole gets hunted down by Arena and then jumps into a pool. Arena finally kills somebody so she can become a person again, and then tells John Hurt's character that she wants to become a cat again. Bear in mind, John Hurt at this point in time entirely knows that if they do what she is requesting, she will become a cat. So now in probably one of the most bizarre scenes, he ties her down to a bed, knowing full well that if he goes through with what she is requesting, she will become a cat. So he does fulfill her request, and then puts her into his zoo. I'm still trying to figure out how, when they were writing the screenplay for this, they went, alright, so John, you're going to do this, but it's well established, and I even know that if I do this, she's going to become a cat. Yeah. So, why would I turn her into a cat? Well, because you love her. Our relationship has been strained at best. How could I really love her to this extent if I've only known her for maybe a couple of weeks? And in that time frame, she's transformed into a cat. I accidentally shot a cat that ended up being her brother and then turned into a pile of pudding on my desk. Can you help me out here? That's okay, we'll have Dave Blood paint some bizarre synthesizer music in the background. Beer, 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 beer. That's what made it. This is like every single 80s cliche thrown into a movie. A movie about people who if they engage in a sexual manner, become cats who then have to kill somebody to revert from cat to human. If you want to see cat people, I highly recommend the 1942 version over this one. It's got better pacing. The 42 version has absolutely no nudity to it, but what's done in this movie doesn't actually add to it. It's just kind of like, oh, we'll throw in just like a little bit. It's like a sprinkle, just because people need to watch this movie for a reason. But the 42 version is undeniably superior to the 82 version. And that is the remake of Cat People that took great liberties to call itself a remake.